Hey, Steve Horvath coming to you from the 3rd annual Greater Philadelphia Sports Show in Oaks, PA. And boy, do I have one for you right here. We're going to talk about the Alabama rig. Not the North Carolina rig, South Carolina rig, not the Calabama rig, the Alabama rig. Now, this is a rig that's got all kinds of stuff going on. It's winning tournaments left and right. And I'm with George from Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, and this guy knows all about the Alabama rig. So I'm pretty much going to sit here and shut up until I have a question. Take it away, George.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Alabama rig fever has hit Oaks, PA.
It sure has.
Every person walking past the booth, where is it? What is it? How do you do it? Obviously, like most bass fishermen, we've been just completely intrigued by this thing. And so much so that I've spent every spare moment that I've had this winter putting the boat in the water and fishing nothing but the Alabama rig. And under the right circumstances, it's everything that it's been billed as. You're not going to put the boat in the water and start throwing it in the water and immediately catch fish. But No.
It's not magic?
It's not quite magic. But if you put yourself in the right scenario, by that I mean find bait fish grouped up, you're quickly going to find out whether or not there's any bass there. Basically what I've been doing this winter, especially with smallmouth, which are real school-oriented this time of the year, I've been spending a lot of time just on the graph, searching for concentrations of bait fish, using the side imaging. It's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And every single outing I've had this winter, when I've found the concentrations of bait fish within 5 or 6 casts, I've either hooked, lost, or landed a fish.
Right.
It's pretty easy to rig. The biggest thing that you need to know first is what are your regulations.
Absolutely.
And there is a lot of misinformation floating around out there. You know, your best case scenario, depending on which state you're going to be fishing, just consult your guide regulation book. Pennsylvania is a 3-hook maximum.
Right. So just like on your big 3-hook Rapala that you would use would be legal, on your Alabama rig, 3 hooks and 2 teasers.
Yeah, basically that's kind of true. The interesting thing is the Rapala with 3 hooks is considered one bait.
Right.
You could theoretically put 3 3-hook Rapalas on here and be legal. Kind of confusing, isn't it?
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing is we learned a couple things.
Right.
First of all, if you notice on what I call my dummies.
Okay.
I have taken the swivel off of the arm.
Okay.
And the reason for that being is we found that when we hook the dummy to the swivel, the dummy just spins.
Really, instead of swimming?
Because he doesn't have a keel on him. Like this head acts as a keel and keeps this bait swimming perfectly. This is the Skinny Dipper, which is one of my favorite swim baits. And when you put a Skinny Dipper on a jig head or even a Texas rig or a belly weighted hook, it really comes to life with that roll and that boot foot, and it looks very natural.
Right. But let's kind of back up for 1 second, George. I think we did a good job of explaining the whole reason for the 3 hooks, but what is like the technical reason why we can use the 3 separate lures in Pennsylvania? What is the ruling that is that? How does that make it different than having a 3-hook Rapala?
You are not. I guess the way the Pennsylvania regulation technically reads is you cannot have more than 3 separate hooked lures on your line at one time.
There you go.
The Rapala even though it has 3 hooks, is
Right.
considered one lure.
But a sabiki rig, like somebody would use for herring, comes with 5, so you have to cut 2
Exactly.
of them off. So it's the same
Because
principle
each one
as
of
that
those
for
little
the law.
sabiki jigs only has 1 hook.
Right.
Now, if each one of those sabiki jigs had 3 hooks, then you would be allowed 3
Right.
3-hook sabiki. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, if you want to go further down that path,
Which means, and that's the reason why 2 of these have to be dummies.
that's exactly right. That's
so
exactly
to stay
right.
legal, you have 2 of them rigged without hooks, 3 of them rigged with hooks, and you're within the law.
But the important thing is,
Right.
a lot of fishermen are saying, well, why don't I just get a 3-armed Alabama rig?
Right.
And actually, you want this school effect.
Right.
The strikes are vicious. It's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a predator response. Even in 36, 37 degree water, we've been getting a fairly fast retrieve and getting these tremendous strikes, and it's because of the school effect.
Right.
So you probably could do all right on
Right.
a 3-wire, but the 5-wire is bringing the full package.
Right. Now, when you cast this thing, okay, I'm not going to put this on my 7-foot drop shot rod with 8-pound line and fish it, am I?
You're not going to. You're going to have to use. They're not real graceful to cast. You're going to have to use a fairly heavy outfit. What I'm recommending for a setup like this, where you have 3/8-ounce heads, 5-inch baits, that's about 2.5 ounces of goodness right there. And I found 7.5 to 711 heavy action flipping sticks,
Braided line?
65-pound braid. What's going to happen to you under 65 pound is through the course of the day and banging the bottom and what have you, you're going to weaken that 50 or 30 down to the point where you're going to cast the rig off just from the torque.
Right.
When you kind of load this thing up, it's a big sweeping, and then you pop it, and
It's almost like casting a Carolina rig. It's
like casting
where you
a
have
Carol-
to you have to get momentum, bring it back, and almost lob it instead
Right.
of snapping it.
right, when you get about halfway through that lob is when you're going to put the wrist into it,
Right.
and that's when you really torque things up. And
Yep.
guys are casting these rigs off because they're fishing with too light of a line.
Right.
The line weight really has no bearing on. I mean, we've been fishing some rather clear water
Right.
this winter with 65 braid, and we're getting vicious strikes.
Right. Now, where are you getting these vicious strikes? What is the situation cover-wise? Over top of grass? Can you fish it deep as well as shallow by like slow rolling it? You know what?
You can
what
do-
are you looking in the
You
way
can-
of cover?
You
for
can
this?
do all of that. Right now your fish are completely relating to bait,
Right.
so it may not even be a cover situation. Most of the scenarios that I've been on this winter, there has been a little bit of a drop off nearby.
Right.
But it's, textbook winter fishing. You find the depth that the bait's suspended at,
Right.
and you find a structural element that coincides with that depth, and you've got an ambush point that the fish relate to when the bait or fish are present. And that's kind of important, but personally, I've been looking for the bait. I haven't been paying attention to the bottom,
Right.
the drops, the rises. I mean, they're not really relating to that. These fish really relate to bait.
So this is basically an open water, bait fish related, schooling fish type of bait.
It is. I do have other parts of the country, some of our customers who are fishing some warmer water scenarios and some shallow water scenarios right now are catching fish rigged up lighter,
Right.
going to like 1/8-ounce heads and fishing 1 to 4, 1 to 5 foot of water with fish relating to boat docks. I spoke with a guy from Clear Lake, California the other day who fishes a weekly tournament circuit on that lake, and he's been doing very well, not on numbers,
Right.
but on size, slow rolling this rig on boat docks, floating boat docks,
Right.
from like the bank out.
Right.
And he's got it rigged up light so that it doesn't sink real quick. Well, speaking of sink rate, something that's interesting, and if you're into the Alabama rig,
Right.
if you take nothing else away from this little talk right here, take this away. This rig This is a swarming hornet swarm.
Right.
3 3/8 ounce heads.
Right.
5 5-inch swim baits. It takes 6 seconds to sink to the bottom in 15 foot of water.
So it sinks pretty quick.
That's kind of an average
Yeah.
sink rate,
Yeah.
but to give you an idea,
Right.
your rate of fall as an angler, you
Right.
can, if you know the rate of fall of a bait, especially when you're fishing suspended fish,
Right.
kind of what I'm learning this winter with this thing, really do not stick to your rules of thumb for, say, cold water fishing.
Right. Now, if I wanted to buy one, of course, George is going to give me one if I ask. He's my buddy. But if somebody wants to buy an Alabama rig, get into the whole thing, outfit it up, what are they looking in the way it costs to get into it, rigging one up, before we wrap this whole deal up?
I'm thinking as a nice average, rigged up Pennsylvania style like this, you're going to have approximately $35 to $40 in a completed rig.
Right.
And you can downgrade that a little bit. The first experience I had with this bait, not knowing much about it, I rigged it up for shallow fishing, and I used shaky heads that I had in my box.
Right.
That had 4/0 hooks on them, thinner wired 4/0 hooks.
Right.
And some smaller swim baits,
Yep.
and I caught fish on it.
Sure.
So there I took existing tackle.
Right.
A friend of mine's fishing on Lake Hartwell right now, practicing for the FLW tournament.
Okay.
He sent me a picture yesterday of what has to be the ugliest Alabama rig out there. He's got a 3/4 ounce football head on one wire. He's got some kind of a darter head on another wire. He just cleaned his tackle box out.
Mix and match.
And they're eating it.
Yep.
So it's the school mentality
Yep.
is the Alabama rig.
And that's what I think we're going to leave everybody at. If you're looking to catch schools of bass, you need to check out the Alabama rig, and you need to come to the Greater Philadelphia Outdoor Show. Check out George at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, and you too can get in on Alabama Rig Mania.
Fever.
That's it, the fever.